Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the exciting episode of the Secret to Crack the Case competition brought to you by Bschool Buddies. Tonight, we are thrilled to host a session featuring the national winners of the Mondelez Maestros Case competition. Our goal is today to help you, the aspiring participants of the Mondelez Case competition 2024. We want to learn you from the best. You will gain the insights into the strategies, frameworks, and tips to excel in one of the most challenging and the rewarding competitions. Let me introduce our extraordinary panelists, all of whom are the XLRI Jamshedpur 2024 passouts. First one, we have with us Anuja, a manager in a corporate strategy at Tata Communication. She combines her expertise in strategy with a knack of creating the impactful solution. Also, we have with us Atharva Kanitkar. He's an IO business graduate at Novo Nordics, brings a unique blend of problem solving skills. Uh, Also, we have a Premankur Roy, currently working as a growth manager at Blinkit. He's a powerhouse of analytical thinking and innovation. Without a further ado, I would now request Anuja and Atharva to take this session forward. Please guide our audience, aspiring case competition champions, on how they can prepare and ace this competition. Over to you guys.
Thanks for the introduction. So I think let's get started. I will start with what the problem statement given to us was the last time around, and then maybe we can dive into our video that we made for the first round, and then the grand finale submission that we made. Let me share my screen. Let me know when it's visible.
It's visible.
Yeah. So this was the problem statement here. It talked about winning in dark with Bonville, basically expanding the dark chocolate category in India. So there's a lot of context here, which I won't get into. I'll go at the main problem statement, which is essentially three things, right? First is understanding the key levers to expand the dark chocolate category in India. Second is they wanted us to come up with a big idea, right? Based on whatever we discover as part of the first subsection. We were to come up with one singular big idea that we believe would help them expand the dark chocolate category and Bonville's market share. And the third was how to win, which is more implementation oriented, giving like a roadmap or an implementation plan as to how our big idea will come to fruition and again achieve the same goal of making Bonville the first choice of dance. So this was the problem statement. Can share this offline if anyone wants to have a detailed look. So the first submission was a video submission, right? Which is what the submission you guys will be making soon, I'm assuming. So here it was a 2-minute video that we were supposed to make. I think the guideline is same this time around as well. So we've been receiving a lot of DMs over LinkedIn as to what actually is supposed to be covered in the video. Does it have to be a screen recording of the PPT, etc. So I'll just answer a couple of those questions and then pass it on to Premankur. So in terms of the video, what worked for us and what we think they're expecting is something that is creative, something that's meant to be consumed in a video format. Not that you create a PPT or you make a speech, create a monologue, and then just record it. Uh, it is meant to be consumed in a video format. You'll understand what I mean when we eventually show you the video. That is one thing. Second is try to make it as concise as possible because there's a 2-minute time frame for a reason. So don't try to, the problem statement is very big. Don't try to cover everything in detail because then you won't be able to capture everything that they're asking. Try to capture everything in brief. Uh, Here they just want to understand how you are approaching the problem statement, and then further rounds you will be expected to detail what you've conveyed in the video. We ended up using Canva to edit the video, and it was a new experience for us also because none of us are actually good at video editing. But we figured it out. We brought in a mic so that our audio is clear. We had Premankur record most of it because his voice is very nice. So we figured out a lot of things, and that's how the video was created. Over to you, Premankur, if you want to add.
So as Anuja mentioned that it was very important that what our video was also creative and our solution was creative and it looked interactive. It looked something that was to be consumed in a video format. But all of that in mind, we also made sure that at least 20 to 25 30% of the chunk of our video also focused on how we were to drive that big idea, of how we were to drive the execution of that idea, not diving deep into it as Anuja said, but just touching upon that, whatever we are mentioning as our solution, whatever we are mentioning as our creative idea is actually implementable as well, so that you are appealing to the people who are seeing the video. These are not just other B school grads, and these are not normal audiences. These are sales managers and brand managers sitting on the other side of the table, right? So you have to make sure that you know your audience and you appeal to them while you are a student, and they expect you to put out content that is like a student and not like a matured professional with 10 years of experience. But they would still expect you to come up with ideas that are creative yet implementable and executionable. So those are 2 cents from my end, and maybe we can just dive into the video, Anuja. Atharva, if you
Athar,
want to
if
add
you
anything.
want to add anything. Yeah.
No, I think you covered all the points, both of you, so we can move on to the video.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just show the video and then maybe we can talk broadly about our thought process in terms of the actual solution as to how we arrived at these particular pointers. I'll just share my screen.
Hello. We are Team Ninja.
Uh, Let me know when it's visible, so I'll start the video.
It's visible and
Visible and
as well.
Yeah, I'll start the video. Or make sure you guys can hear the audio as well.
hello. We are Team Ninjas from XLRI Jamshedpur. Let's dive in. We came up with three different personas based on 17 in-depth consumer interviews. The first, novice, looks for snacking bites and is influenced by peer. The variety seeker wants variety in taste with a premium experience. The cocoa connoisseur desires bitterness and also eats dark chocolates for the perceived health benefits and lower sugar content. Our big idea is positioning Boneville as a daily luxury. Boneville would be luxurious yet approachable for the novice. For the variety seeker, it adds novelty to a regular experience and reinforces guilt-free indulgence for the cocoa connoisseur.
So, how to win? For awareness and consideration, we plan to revamp our content strategy along with paid visibility assets and modern trade. We propose Starbucks partnership and adding Bonville BZ coolers in retail stores. To drive trial and purchase, we suggest corporate gifting partnerships along with experience zones and cash sale placements in hypermarkets. To create category captaincy, we plan to focus on subliminal brand positioning by capitalizing on trends and viral content. Here's a sample idea.
Collaboration with Starbucks to create Boneville hot chocolate will develop consumer palate and reaffirm our position as the first choice of dark. We plan to have Boneville branded busy coolers in retail stores. We plan to set up experience zones in hypermarkets and malls for free trials. Product placements in cashiers near counters will enable impulse purchases.
Our approach can be summarized as Beacon, wherein through targeted interventions at every step, from engaging content to interactive trials, we are making Bonville synonymous with daily luxury, driving brand growth and consumer choice in India's dark chocolate category.
Maybe Atharv can go ahead of what he thinks of the
Yeah.
video.
Now that I look back upon this video, Some of the ideas which we have proposed in this were quite creative and not very scary as well as the effort
Is Athar's
which
voice breaking you as well? Yeah. I think Athar, your voice is breaking a little.
we and
Hello.
many other some people had put along. Hello.
Yes, Athar.
Right. So, how much did you hear, or should I just start from the beginning?
Start from the top.
Start
Yes.
from the
Okay, sure.
beginning.
Right. So, looking back on the video now, I mean, most of the ideas which we suggested are quite not scalable for Mondelez, but the thing which also stood out was that the ideas are quite creative, and it is not something which the company was doing at that time. So the the point which probably stood out for us during the submission was that it was it was in stark contrast with what the company is currently doing, and that is something which the judges also look for. That is what I feel, because like 70% of our ideas might be bogus, but it is the 30% which actually matters to them, and which is why it is necessary to be extremely creative. And even though like the video is not extremely polished or very creative in that sense, but the ideas are well structured out, and we, even though there is a lot of content on the screen, we only talk about the things which actually matter, and the key points that actually matter and which the judges should hear. So in addition to making the video, making a proper script is also equally important. And maybe Anuja can add a little bit on that, since she was the one who made most of the script.
Yeah, so exactly what Athar said, right? That because it's a 2 minute video and they are serious about the 2 minute timeline. So make sure you're not exceeding that timeline, and you can put more content on the on what the video is covering. But when you're talking, it should be self-sufficient in a way that even if someone closes their eyes and just hears what you're saying, they are able to understand what you're saying. Talking about the solution in itself, you saw three things in the problem statement, right, initially. So we tried to hit all three bases in terms of we started with the consumer persona, we narrowed down on one particular persona, then we moved on to our big idea, and then we covered implementation towards the end. In terms of big idea, I'm not sure if the current problem statement is also asking for the big idea. But in general, right, like Athar also mentioned, I just want to highlight that they expect something that is scalable, implementable, and not something drastically different from what they are doing. Because let's say a lot of our friends also, right, who had done amazing submissions, but their ideas were very difficult to implement. For example, someone suggested that Bonville should completely change their packaging. They should come up with a new SQ, a 10 rupee SQ, etc. While these were good ideas and greatly presented also, we think that they were looking for something. There's no way to know what they're looking for, but based on what we've seen, they were looking for something that is implementable and yet easily implementable and yet has a very high. So that is why we went with this solution ultimately and scrapped off a lot of high and mighty ideas that we initially started with. Over to you, Premankul.
I think we should just go ahead with the PPT with the solution, and I think we are done with the video, right? We can move
Yeah,
forward.
sure, sure. So we can take Q&A towards the end for the video if anyone has. Uh, so after this, there was another video submission wherein they asked us to expand to 5 minutes. Won't be showing that here to better utilize our time. So we'll move on to the grand finale, which was the next submission that we made. I'll just share my screen. Can you guys see?
One thing that while Anuja is sharing her screen, I would like to add that before you make the submissions, just try and understand what the brand or the product companies actually doing right now, right? I mean, we had the idea of Visi coolers because Cadbury generally does Visi coolers, Kit Kat does Visi coolers, Hershey's does Visi coolers, but there are no Boneville Visi coolers there. So try and understand what you are doing, what your parent company is doing, what the competitors are doing, and that will just help you with these things. Secondly, we also talked to some of our batchmates who had interned with Mondelez before we made this submission. So if you have anyone who has worked with Mondelez, interned with Mondelez, please go out and reach out to them and try to get any insights if possible. So yes, back to you, Anuja.
Yeah. So this is our grand finale submission. I'll just run through a couple of slides quickly before handing it over. So here also, as you see, right, there's a direct equivalence between the video and what we're showing here. So it's essential that you expand upon the narrative that you proposed in your initial submission. So here we again called out the personas. Then we, after in the variety seeker, we broke it down into non-consumers of dark chocolate and existing consumers of dark chocolate who are for some reason not into Bonville currently. Then we sort of figured out what consumers from each category are saying. Then we moved on to our big idea, which was changing the positioning of Bonville to your daily luxury, and then we justified it as to why this makes sense. By the way, this entire grand finale was streamed live by Mondelez, in case you guys are not aware. So you can head there and watch us present the entire thing along with four other great submissions, which will give you an idea of what they are looking for. Yeah, and then this is the implementation. Premankur, maybe you want to take it up.
So, how we also divided responsibilities within the three of us is also something that is important for you guys to know, and maybe you can take something out of it. So, Anuja and Atharv both had come from tier one consulting internships from BCG, and I had come from an internship in the FMCG space with Dabur. So we were trying to use each other's strengths and our skill sets to come up with the solutions, work on the PPT, work on the ideas. So whenever there were implementation ideas based on what an FMCG company should actually do, that is where I was coming in. Whenever there was lofty ideas that were to be thought which were completely out of the box, that is where Anuja was coming in, even Athar was coming in, and of course the entire of the financials was taken care of by Athar. So it is very important for your team to also understand how would you divide the responsibilities. While it's important to work together as well, sometimes it's also important to have some of your parts separated and segregated. So coming to how to win the sales and marketing plan that we had tried to understand what are the things that a premium brand like Boneville would benefit from doing, right? From all the primary research that we had done, we had also understood that some of these people who were actually consumers of the dark chocolate category or premium chocolate category were customers of modern trade retail stores, quick commerce apps. We also tried to identify some of the key drivers of those personality traits which were not really directly related to chocolates but uh, related to their other persona behavior. Let's say someone who buys premium chocolates also flies frequently in airlines, or someone who buys premium chocolates also uses OTT apps, has a Netflix subscription, let's say. So we are trying to put two different aspects of a person's personality together and make some sense of our marketing plan. So what we were saying is that we would not just have paid ads on social media platforms like Instagram and YouTube, but we would also want to partner with some Netflix or Amazon OTT shows where we can place our products within the shows or within the movies. Secondly, we tried to understand what are the modern trade assets where in-store branding could be done in a, let's say, Reliance Smart. uh, so floor stack units, or cash tails or end caps. These are some fancy terms that are used for visibility assets within the modern trade store. So we found those out, and we found out that brands like to do these things, which don't just drive sale in the store, but also drive awareness and top of mind recall. And finally, of course, we already mentioned about visi-coolers. And the last was, of course, displaying search ads on, let's say, a Blinkit, a Swiggy Instamart, a Zepto, all of those quick commerce apps, because we also did some more competitor research and found that if you would search, let's say, Boneville, Amul dark chocolate would pop out in Swiggy Instamart. So then again, how to drive trials. So trial is again an important factor when you are going into a category like dark chocolate, because people have an inhibition of taste. And how did we come out of that, come up with this insight? Again, through consumer interactions, through interventions. And if you go till the final round, Mondelez will help you have some consumer immersions through their immersion programs as well. So from there we got this insight, and to drive trials we thought that, okay, fine, most of these consumers are either frequent flyers or corporate employees, so why not introduce Boneville as an in-flight complimentary chocolate in, let's say, a premium airline like Vistara. So some of the cost would be paid by us as a company because we are trying to drive awareness, and some of the cost can be paid by the airline or by the customer. Whatever, let's say a 50 rupee SKU or 60 rupee SKU is available on a flight at, let's say, 30 rupee or whatever. So these are some of the implementation ideas that we were coming up with as to how to win, how to position Boneville as a daily luxury that we were trying to position is it as. So again, while we were changing the positioning, the implementation ideas were not too far off from what the organization was already doing. They were probably not doing this for Boneville, but they were probably doing this for, let's say, Silk, or let's say Cadbury Dairy Milk, or let's say Five Star. They were doing it for some or the other brand, which we suggested that, okay, fine, pick this good aspect of this brand and put it here, and this is how you should drive it, and this is how you will get sales at the end of it. So that's it from my end. You can move ahead, Anuja. Again, all of what we already mentioned.
Yeah, here we're just deep diving into the whole solution that you've proposed here. This is modern trade and general trade that Premankur was talking about.
Yes. And the our entire presentation is available on YouTube on Mondelez, on Unstop's channel. You can also check Mondelez Maestros grand finale from last year. And we had a deep dive as to how to get into each of these ideas, how many cities, how many stores, and stuff like that. So we went into a lot of detailing, and we also had customer excerpts from the immersion that we did. What did they say? What were the keywords that we found out, and how to tackle those keywords? And all these ROI factors mentioned at the bottom were calculated by Athar.
You can refer to the video which is there on the live stream for the exact calculation and how it is done.
Yeah, that reminds me. The grand finale stage, they tend to pull apart and question everything that you've put in. There's a 15-minute Q&A round, right? So, whatever you are putting, even in your initial submission, right, give it a thorough thought as to why you are doing this, why this makes sense, how you will do it. Think about your solution from all angles. Yeah. This is about trials. As Premankur mentioned, that Bonville is a dark chocolate wherein, the Indian consumers are very apprehensive. They think it tastes better, or those who consume Amul dark chocolate think that Bonville is a little too premium and not really for me. So to get over that perception and drive sales of Bonville, trials are very important. So these are just different avenues of trials that we're deep diving into. And this is the implementation plan. I think Atharv, you should talk about this.
Yeah, so like looking at the top left side, the implementation plan isn't very granular. It is on a very high level type of a strategy, but it is necessary because it just lets the judges know that you have thought about it from A to Z at least the high level, and you don't really need to go into the deep dive because you also don't know how the company implements the strategies in their organization. Another thing which you might notice is that there is also in the video, Anuja was talking about the beacon strategy, which was just some sort of a fancy word which we came up with just to bring together all of the interventions and the strategies which we had suggested. So that is also something, while it is not really that much of a value add to the entire idea which we had, it just serves like a keyword to bring together your solution, and it just increases the recall for the judges after the Q&A session is done. So that is also something which was valuable for us. And the revenue uptick, market size, etc., these things are quite subject to change based on the assumptions which you make. And hence I won't really go into the calculations of that, but having these things in your PPT is quite necessary. Anuja, you can move on. uh, Here also, this is this the scenario chart which you might see at the middle bottom. It's not exactly very complex. It is just a simple scenario analysis which you can find quite easily on YouTube how to do that. But it is the representation of that which actually matters here, because here we are not just giving the judges one answer. Like, we are not saying ki you will have a profit or a loss of 400 crores. We are giving them multiple scenarios, and it just helps them visualize where their PNL might land at the end of the year, or in case they decide to have these implementations. And in the end, the judges who are going to be judging you are at the VP level, and they care about sales and they care about the numbers at the end of the day. So that is what matters to them. And in order for that to make sense with your entire solution and for it all to be cohesive, your numbers need to match what the ground reality looks like, or at least be in close proxy with those. So constant sense checks with your teammates as well as your friends in college is quite necessary, because like Premankur and Anuja might remember that while I was working on these numbers, we went over these numbers quite a few times, because many times they were quite out of whack and quite out of bounds. So that is also necessary to for the numbers to make sense. And yeah, just basically bringing it all together, that is what matters.
Yeah, that's the end of the submission.
That's it, guys. Uh,
And by the
so
way, I would suggest you guys to go and watch the grand finale. Not just our PPT, because the PPTs of many of the other teams which made it to the grand finale are quite nice. Most of them had very good ideas. So you can also take a bit of learning from all of those PPTs. And the Q&A session for most of the PPTs were quite enlightening and would just give you a taste of what the judges are looking for. So make sure you go through those things.
so there
There,
are
there is one
questions.
question. Yes.
There are two questions. So finding the line between the aspirational plan and the most probable plan seems tricky. How did you guys manage that? Thank you for the question, Rajvardhan. So I'll take this up first, and then maybe Anuja can mention. So again, we tried to find. We were like, "Ki, okay, fine. We'll go ahead with whatever ideas we'll have. We'll sort out, mention out all the ideas, even the crazy ones, even the aspirational ones. We'll mention all of them in one place, and then we'll see how many of them are actually executionable, right? How many of them can actually be implemented on the ground. What are the things that the companies are already doing? They are doing visi-coolers, they are doing modern trade assets, they are doing digital ads, quick commerce ads. Fine. Will they be able to change the SKU completely? Will they be able to change the brand's image completely? Will they be able to change the products completely? Maybe not. What can they change then, so that our ideas, our aspirational plans fit into place? they can maybe change positioning. So we went for something which seemed aspirational as well, but also was executionable. So that is how we found the line, Rajvardhan. And I think it's a balancing act within your team. One person in your team will come up with an aspirational idea, and sometimes the other two, or at least one of the three, has to play the devil's advocate and come up with reasons as to why it's not a good idea to be put on the PPT. And then the other person who came up with the idea has to come up with reasons as to why it's a good idea to be put up on the PPT and how it can be executed. So that kind of a back and forth within your team is also important for you to, maintain that line. Anuja, you want to add something?
Yeah, so I think exactly the last part that Premankar said, right? I remember we were sitting for at least 5 to 6 hours, the three of us, before we even started on the submission, just noting everything down and, acting like sharks on each other's ideas. The idea is not to bring down or tear down ideas, but to invite constructive criticism. Because if I am coming up with an idea, I might feel like it's the best idea in the world, right? But someone else might be able to very clearly see what the flaws are. And also, even after we finalized our idea, the three of us had like a session or a validation of our idea with our friends whom we trusted, right? Who came from an FMCG background, who were very nice enough to help us. So even at that stage, even after three of us were on board that this is the way to go, we spoke to other people to get a perspective and sort of enhance our idea further. Yeah, I hope
Yes.
that answers your question, Rajvardhan.
There are more questions. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
yes. Mm, oh,
Um, Muskan is asking, okay, can we get PDF and resource of that PPT? Yeah, the solution is already available on YouTube, but we can share a PDF also, no problem. What do you think are the most critical points in the current case that has been given? So actually, we haven't gotten a chance to go through the current case. Um, if you can maybe type out the problem statement, we can give some insights later.
there is one more question. Like, is it necessary to mention the financial aspect in the 2 minutes video?
I
No,
don't
not at all.
think we mentioned it, right? I thought,
No, no, we did not.
no, we did not. We only mentioned about the financials in the grand finale submission
No, no, we
and
had also put it in the 5 minute video, but
5 minutes.
no, it is absolutely not necessary in the 2 minute video.
The 2 minute video is more about your idea. If the judges understand your idea, then they'll want to know about everything ranging from detailed implementation to financials, etc. So again, a caveat here is we've not looked at the current problem statement. So in case it is the kind of problem statement where financials matter, you might want to look at that. Yeah, more often than not, it's not required in a 2 minute video.
Could you shed some light on sales and marketing strategy of Mondelez? Unfortunately, none of us work there, uh,
Yeah.
but we whatever we mentioned right now also now we did the research as to what Mondelez is actually doing, and for that, honestly, you might not even need someone who has worked in Mondelez. You would just need to have an eye of that sales and marketing professional. Go to stores, go to modern trade chains, search on quick commerce apps, just observe around you, and you'll find there are a lot of aspects of sales and marketing strategy that even you can, just go out of your home and observe. I mean, I remember Anuja and I, we also worked on a different case competition for Coca-Cola, and most of our primary and secondary research was done like this only, by just going and visiting local kirana shops and local modern trade stores.
To add on to that, uh, none of you would have an idea of what the company's internal sales and marketing strategy is. What matters is your interpretation of it. So, if I were to put it into context, amongst the three of us, I love dark chocolate, while Anuja and Premankur are more akin to consume milk chocolate or a little bit chocolate of the sweeter kind. So, in this sense, what Mondelez could mean for them is a silk or the crackle wali Cadbury which you get. While for me, it is more focused on the dark chocolate. So in my case, I was more focused on featuring the cocoa connoisseur in our solution, while they were more akin to identify as variety seekers. So your interpretation of what the company is trying to do also matters, and that is what the company would also value, your interpretation of their sales and marketing strategy.
There are more questions. We
Yes,
can go to
there
the
is
next.
an next question is like, how did you ensure that all financial assumptions were rational and supported by the proper justification during the calculation for NPV?
So it is absolutely not possible that all of my or all any of our assumptions are 100% correct, but you can make sure that they are at least 80% close to that of the reality. So what you can do is go through the financial reports of the company, so the annual reports of the company, and at the same time, since Mondelez is such a large entity, you could also go through an entity which is of a smaller scale. So in my case, I had went through the financials of a niche chocolate brand called Paul and Mike. So their sales and marketing campaign, the cost which they incurred for that would be quite close to what Mondelez would incur, since it would be a new strategy and a new uh, communication channel for them. So that is something which you can do. And of course, it won't be 100% correct. But as I said previously, doing a sense check of the numbers is what actually matters. And you being able to justify those numbers during Q&A and during the presentation is what matters.
This is the current year case that we are sharing.
The case looks very interesting, guys.
Yeah.
I would actually say that we shouldn't give our thoughts on the case because it would build a bias in their mind. So I would actually advise you not to say anything about the case.
Yes,
True.
and
Not a
honestly, there
specific,
is a
but
lot of scope of thinking very creatively and thinking completely outside the box.
Yeah.
At least in our case, we had to work with an existing brand, so there were limitations around what the brand was already doing. But I'll just try to nudge you in terms of how to think. Just think of what Mondelez and its brands stand for, and try to associate each of those brands with some of these eatery types, and try to see how you can collaborate and get into each of them, right? I mean, a TG, an eatery TG for a five-star entry point and five-star marketing point would be different, and a eatery TG for a let's say Boneville again would be different. So there are different eateries which you can target from different brand perspectives as well. So maybe you can think on those lines, but not again, as Atharv said.
Yes.
yeah.
There is one
And
more
one
question.
more thing
Yes,
is actually, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
yes, yes. Yes. Continue. Just I am asking the
Yeah.
other another question.
Yeah, so like I don't want to give too many thoughts, but one thing I would suggest is actually go to these eateries, right? You might think that okay, I've been here multiple times, right? It won't really be fruitful, but once you have this case on your mind and you go and you observe, that will definitely help you understand, what other brands are doing, what Mondelez is currently doing in these type of eateries, right? So maybe your team, I am not sure when is the submission. So if you guys have time, I would 100% suggest to at least pick 3 4 of these types of eateries that they've mentioned and visit with your team. Yeah, we can move on.
Yes. The next question is that how do you ensure you do justice to your solution in the 2 minutes? Can you speak about this more?
See,
So
let me start. So, you can't really deep dive, right? Since the problem statement is big, even here I'm seeing that there's a lot of points that they're expecting you to cover. So, what we did in our submission is cover all bases. There should be nothing that they've asked you to do that you've left out, right? You won't be able to deep dive as such. So, you can start by planning your video as to, okay, these are the 10 points they're expecting us to cover, and this is the amount of time we'll dedicate to each of these sections. And yeah, I mean, your slide or what you're showing on the screen can be a little more detailed, but what you are speaking, you'll just have to write a script like Athar was talking about. Don't worry about exploring everything completely thoroughly, because it's not possible in 2 minutes. Just make sure that your solution is in the right direction and you're covering all bases that are mentioned in the problem statement. You guys want to add anything?
nothing around the video and as such, but in case your team goes on to the final stages, I would highly recommend you to practice your presentations n number of times. I can't stress enough on how important it is. Please don't think of winging it. Please don't just read through your PPTs. Learn your lines, remember what you have to speak, and practice with your teammates for multiple times. I think that was one of the key differences that our team had compared to some of our other teams that were there in the finals. I think
Okay.
that's what.
Yes. Mm, I think there are no more questions now.
Thank you so much, guys.
Uh, okay. Okay then. Thank you
Thanks a
so
lot,
much, guys.
everyone. Hope
Yes.
this was helpful.
Yes. Yes. First of all, a very thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule. Uh, here, little bit, I just explain about the what B School Buddies is doing. Like we are a community of 16 to 70K students on LinkedIn. Also, we are providing the uh, final placement preparation program. There is a one-to-one mentorship. Also, we are providing sector-specific webinars, and there are the different webinars for the different corporate case competition. We provide a specific guidance to them. Uh, can you change the slide? So if you want to join our program, you can scan this QR code and join our WhatsApp group for more updates. Uh, Once again, I thank you, Premankur, Anuja, and Atharva, for sharing your valuable insights and also walking us through the what are the thought processes in approaching the statements, also your strategies and experiences that will surely help the students to preparing for the this case competition for this year. And thank you so much for your time. And thank you, audience, for joining the session. Here I will conclude.